people can take your stuff. You know, I'm sure somebody's gonna take my artwork at some point. You know, it's on Instagram. You know, they could trace it, they could tattoo it, they could try to be Chimu. You know, but the thing that makes us unique, bro, is that we're creative. I always have something extra in my back pocket because I'm creative. You know, so stealing something, taking something, it's never gonna amount to the ideas that I have.
While the world is burning, got to make amends. Walk on the sunny side with a positive lens. Talks about passion between the women and the men. Chris Dyer and his creative friends. Darling, ooh, ooh,
Hi, welcome back to Chris Dyer's Creative Friends, the super awesome podcast YouTube show where me, your artist friend Chris Dyer, talks to his super interesting, magical, spiritual, creative friends. Woo! This week I got my friend El Chimu. Who's joining us here all the way to Tarapoto, Peru. We're about to enter the jungle to do a nice art and medicine retreat. But before that, I wanted to interview him for my show. So, how you doing, my brother?
Good. Aquí estamos. I'm chilling. I'm feeling really good. Thank you for having me out here. I'm super grateful, super blessed to see you again. It's your birthday coming up, so I'm really excited to spend your birthday with you, and I wouldn't have wanted to do this any other way. So thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you, man. Thank you for joining me. For years, we've been talking about you coming out here, and then all of a sudden, like a week ago, you're like, hey, Chris, I think I'm coming.
Yeah, it's kind of happens like that. I think I kind of live my life like a little bit like that, you know? Yo hago que me da la gana, you know? And I'm just like, out here,
Con dinero, sin dinero,
yeah.
hago
We just
siempre lo
out
que
here.
quiero.
That's how, you know, it was cool. It was cool. My schedule cleared up. It was something that was much needed. I've been wanting to do ceremony in the jungle for quite a while, to touch my Pachamama, to be here amongst all this beautiful, just this beautiful life. You know, all the life of the people, the life of the mountains, the life of the jungle, the plants, the rivers. We were just surrounded by all this beautiful elements. I just sometimes I feel like I don't deserve it, man. It's just so beautiful, and I'm thankful. Thanks for making it happen. You know.
Yeah, no problem. We are blessed, but we also manifest. You know, like it's not like it just falls on our laps. You worked hard to fly yourself here and go through all the hoops of COVID world to get back.
It was a trip. I don't think I've ever had to take a plane with so much equipment on my face. You know, like
Right.
I was sweating under like a mask and plastic shield.
Yeah, the Darth Vader.
Yeah, the
situation.
Darth Vader. You know, I slept with this. You know, I try to sleep against the window and the thing's all like
Yeah.
banging against the ground.
How can we ever sleep on a plane again with this equipment?
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you once again for coming here. And
appreciate it.
so on these shows, because it's all like my actual friends, I always start with the stories of how we met. Do you remember how we met?
Wow. Okay. Well, I remembered speaking to you a little bit on Instagram. I've always loved your artwork. I feel like our art has a similar language, although it's very different. I think that the language is a certain energy that comes forth from it. It's
Right, with tribes,
ancestral, tribal,
shamanic, visionary of ancient futures.
So I've always been drawn to it. Actually, you know what? I was at a tattoo convention, and a woman came up to me, and she was looking at my art, and she said, "Do you know who Chris Dyer is?" And I said, "No, I've never heard of him." She goes, "Have you ever heard of Kadari Center?" And I was like, "No." And she wrote down all the information, and I had it in my wallet for like a couple of years, actually.
Okay.
And then I remember, like, I was talking to you about it, and then I went to my wallet. I wonder if I still have it in there. I might still have it there. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna check them out. And then I think through Instagram, I might have, yup, look at that. Bam! Cassandra Clark. That's who we got.
Oh yeah,
Tattoos
she
by
was on the
consent.
first retreat here.
Look up Chris Dyer.
Sick, and here you are
Boom.
manifesting.
Still in my wallet.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as I found your art on Instagram myself, I was like, holy shit, this art's dope. I want him to tattoo me. And you were like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, where are we going to meet? When? And you were based in San Diego. And but I just haven't been able to go to San Diego these last few years. And then all of a sudden last year, you were in Peru because you're half Peruvian,
Eso.
visiting some family, and you decided to visit me in Quilmaná and offer me this beautiful tattoo I got here.
Look, it's beautiful. It healed really nice. That was a really beautiful trip for me too. It was cool to like kind of go out there. I'd never been to Quilmaná. Mi abuela estaba diciendo como, yo, you're gonna go all the way out there? I was like, yeah, I'm gonna tattoo this guy. She's always like kind of like, you know, be careful, you know. And it was such a beautiful trip. And I remember pulling up into the area, and there was a lady with all her like, like donkeys or something, or goats or something. She was
Right.
just walking with all these goats. And
Pretty much a village.
yeah, and it was so beautiful. All the San Pedros that were growing there. You were building your apartment on the land. The land was really beautiful. Your family was really welcoming, really good people. And we had an awesome little ceremony. And
You pretty much stayed up all night.
Yeah, stayed up all night, just tattooing. And yeah, it was rad. It was so cool. It was so cool. I really felt blessed to be able to come out there and do that.
Right. Ariane also got a tattoo.
Yeah,
her
yeah,
first
she got-
ever tattoo.
Big, beautiful tattoo on her leg. It was a such a quetzal, and yours was a combination of a lot of elements, you know, in there. So
Right.
it was cool that we got to
Condor, my wolf, death, warrior.
That's you, bro.
That's
the spiritual gangster.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for going all the way to Quilmaná on a bus to hang out with us to give me this tattoo. That's amazing. So you're half Peruvian. You're half Peruvian and half American?
Yeah, I wouldn't say American, but my father is from the States. He's of Greek descent, and I think that like kind of was hard finding like a little bit of my identity through that, because you know, it's kind of like when you're growing up like that, kind of mixed biracial, you kind of have to pick a side in a way. I was raised more with my mother's culture. We spoke Spanish, we get food. I go to Peru every 2 years. I lived there, and my father raised me a lot with his a bit of his culture, mostly in like the religious aspects. I used to go to church with him a lot, but he is more from the States. You know, he's like very kind of like New Yorker.
So this was in New
Jersey. Yeah, I was born and raised in New York, in the city, and then I've lived in Brooklyn and Yonkers. Back to Brooklyn when I was 16. Went to school out there. So I was pretty much raised a lot more with my mother's culture. Although my father he did do his part, but it was a little confusing kind of growing up like that. I believe that the beautiful thing about my art was that I kind of found a way to like combine both my cultures, you know, like being that he is from the States, or modern United States of America, and I started getting into tattooing, and I was really drawn to American traditional tattoo, but I never really liked doing most of the motifs that are associated with traditional American tattooing. Most of them are military based, or American flags, cannons, and eagles. And I love eagles, but you know, this was very patriotic to the United States, which I didn't really resonate with much, especially because I spent so much time in Peru and had a strong identity with the Peruvian side of my heritage. So,
But there's something nice about the
boldness and the crispness and the power behind them, the fit and the flow. Probably comes second only to Japanese tattooing, which has a bit more flow and coverage. So I wanted to do something that kind of resonated more with what was in line with my identity. So I decided to start. I started really getting into. I started doing. Let's see. I started going to the Mexica New Year Festival, vending at the Mexica New Year Festival in San Jose, where I started to meet. Actually, I can take it back before that. I started.
Yeah, where did you start doing tattoos?
Oh, all right. All right. Let's go. So one of my cousins, Renzo, was a really well-known tattoo artist in Lima, and he had one of the first tattoo shops in Lima. But it was probably him, Ivan, Coyote, and Stefano, who were like pioneers of tattooing in Lima. But my cousin had the first tattoo shop. There was probably people tattooing in like the markets and stuff like that, but he had the first official like tattoo shop. He used to come to New York and spend time with me and my family, paint and tattoo in New York. So as a kid, I was always watching him, and you know, my mom would always be like, "Oh, yo, you're never gonna, don't ever, you know, think about tattooing my son and this and that." But eventually, he did end up tattooing me, and eventually he got into like, I got these little guys from like it's silly. It was like an alpha and omega. It was like, oh, the energy in the circle. You put your hands together, something like that. You know, I was young at the time. I was like 15, 16 when I got these.
Okay, nice.
I tried to hide them from my mom for a while, but she eventually found them. She was a little upset about that. But yeah, he eventually got into computer animation and sold me all his equipment. I read a Huck Spalding A through Z, which was like a little tattoo kind of guidebook, and I just started tattooing that same week.
Oh wow!
And,
so you learned tattooing from a book?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, a little bit of his tutelage, and I was fucking a lot of people up though. You know, to keep it real. Like there was I did a couple good ones. I had a pretty strong graffiti and art background, so I was always like kind of drawing and stuff. But that was like definitely something different and new. It wasn't. I started really taking it more seriously maybe a year or two after that. And I landed myself a shop in Brooklyn, in Crown Heights, on Franklin Avenue between Park and Sterling. One of my best friends to this day kind of took me under his wing. Well, actually offered me a job at his shop. He told me if I could bring somebody in that day and tattoo them and do a good job, that he would give me a job. So I had to quickly call one of the homies. He came through, did a quick little tattoo on him. And
you had to prove yourself.
Yeah, he told me I didn't really know how to tattoo, which I was kind of bummed out about because I thought it was awesome to tattoo. But yeah, he was right. I was doing everything the wrong way. I think I had one machine for like everything. I didn't know that there was like a liner and a shader. I was using an 8-round shader for everything, so it's taking me a lot longer. But I think that also, you know, I definitely do not recommend that anybody learns tattooing in that kind of way. But at the same time, it kind of gave me the chops. I wasn't afraid to tattoo anybody, you know. I wasn't afraid to do this or that, to try new things, to try to be innovative. So I think that kind of gave me a little bit of an edge as well, even though it took me longer to learn things the right way. I had a bunch of other mentors. Big Jazz, homie that gave me the chance to work at a shop.
And this was
This is in Brooklyn. Yeah, Brooklyn. This is Brooklyn. I started tattooing in the summer of 2004. It wasn't probably like 2007 that I landed this job, you know, in a shop. So I started getting a lot more skin time and learning the right way, and also being around a higher caliber of artists that were showing me what's up, you know, and it was cool. It was cool. And so doing that around 2010, I started going to a lot of powwows, and I started seeing a lot of the Mexica dancers at the powwows, and I was really drawn to the energy of their movements. I was really into martial arts at the time too, so their dance, the danza, really like reminded me of like warrior movements, and their regalia, the dresses that they wore just had these beautiful, powerful symbols on them.
Right.
And I started really understanding, like, kind of. I started having a vision of the type of people I wanted to tattoo and the type of images that I wanted to tattoo. So I in the beginning, I was more into black and gray. I've always, my grandfather was a really amazing painter, and he painted a lot of pre-hispanic work. And I feel like I always grew up with a lot of like huacos around me, Peruvian art, like just Peruvian art around me, pre-Columbian art around me. So I was always very drawn to that. Goethe was one of my favorite tattoo artists, like growing up, and looking at his stuff kind of made me want to do more. He did more like black and gray, realistic, very stone, high contrast kind of work. And so I wanted to kind of start emulating that style, but it wasn't until I would always paint in color. So people were like, "Oh, your paintings are really bright and colorful. Maybe you should start bringing that into the tattooing." I remember also being heavily influenced by Adam Hathorn. Kong. He's out of San Diego now. Also a very close friend of mine now. He's an awesome dude.
Yeah,
And,
I do follow his work.
Yeah, I did a guest spot at Guru Tattoo, Aaron Della Mendoza's shop, which was in Pacific Beach. So that was like one of the earlier guest spots that I did. I never thought I could get a guest spot over there. I called them up, and I remember Jazz telling me, call them, and I bet they'll give you a guest spot. And I went there, and I got tattooed by Adam. And I started trying. Then I started like.
Which one is it?
Oh, it's this dude right here. Is it this? Oh, it's this leg. Yeah, so it's this guy right here.
Oh,
It's big
damn.
boar. You know, so it was cool, and then he was such a nice dude, and I started like saying, okay, I see how he uses these bold lines and these bright colors.
Right.
Then being tattooing in Brooklyn, the traditional tattooing was so big over there that I started really understanding how to paint flash, learning how to paint flash. Two close homies of mine, Justin Lupuma and Mike Pinto, really helped me with painting flash and kind of also moving in that direction of bold lines, bright colors. And then it kind of just all clicked together. I remember seeing this dude out of San Diego, Chris Corona, that painted a flash sheet that looked like with these like Aztec Mexica motifs, and I was just like, all right, let me just combine it all together. Let me do the artwork that I love, the thing that moves me, something that's part of my heritage, and this pre-Hispanic, pre-Columbian artwork, and it just fused it all together. And once I started painting more flash like that, people saw it and they were just like, you got to do more, you got to do more.
Right.
And so I really started studying more. The thing that I really appreciated about the mission, Peru has so many different tribes, native peoples. We have, the Wadis, the Chavin, we have the Lima, we have the Nazca, the Ica, there's Baracas, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
So we have an infinite source of cultures, and even the Wacos, like all these different Wacos, and then the animals. So then so we have like all this reference, that's been left for us from our ancestors to utilize in this way. So I started pushing it more. But the thing that really drew me to the Mexica stuff was the danzantes and also their calendar. The calendar is such a very complete. There's a Tonapo Wali, which is like a 260-day calendar, and then we have the Shupawali, which is 365-day calendar. And I heard that the 260-day calendar is using the moon cycles and also to the time that it takes for conception for a woman to be pregnant. It's like the 9 months that it takes for a woman to give birth. So both calendars kind of coincide together. And each day has like a different symbolism. So once I started really studying that, and also when I traveled to Peru, Tiwanaku, Bolivia, it's a little bit outside of La Paz. It's this ancient city with big, beautiful ruins. They also have the Puerta del Sol is also their own 365-day calendar. So I think the important thing to remember is that these borders that were drawn, this is Mexico, this is Peru, this is Chile, this came after, the Inquisition, after colonization.
Do you think there was
South Mexico.
I know there's a lot of different cultures all around Latin America. Do you think there was like a initial culture that united them all? Since you say there's a lot of similarities, do you think there was something that was the source of them all throughout time? Like, for example, we got fucking Viracocha. That was in Tiwanaku, was in Chavin, was in the Incas.
That's a really good question.
What's the connection between all these cultures before the Spanish came and ruined it all?
I think that the answer to that is spirit. I think that people were very in tune with nature. There was a universal consciousness that I think that people were very in tune with, that native people and indigenous people were very in tune with. And I say native too, being that, you see these serpents in all cultures. Everybody's native, because everybody's native to someone. Right now we're talking about indigenous Americas, the landmass is connected. So yeah, I do think that people from South America were traveling all the way up to North America and vice versa. People from North America there's definitely evidence of people from the southern parts of Peru all the way up into Ecuador. If they went up to Ecuador, then I'm sure they made it through Panama. If they made it through Panama, I'm sure they made it to Mexico, and I'm sure they made it to the to present where Aztlan or United States is currently at right now. So yeah, I think that these people were all in communication with each other, but on a higher level, I think that all people that were in tune with nature, that were living with the universe, in tune with the universal breath, were definitely in tune and were receiving the same images from Creator, and especially if they were doing heavy, deep meditations or ceremonies or plant medicines.
Right.
I think that I think we all see the same things during ceremony a lot of times. You know, we see the serpents, we see sacred geometry, we see it in the clouds.
And these tribal kind of characters. Like
Yeah,
the first time I did ayahuasca and I got deep into the void, I would see these like Paracas and Chavin kind of characters. And when I came out and I asked Herbert, my shaman, what's the deal with this? Like, is it there? And then I saw it and we're all seeing the same place or language, or because I seen it outside in the real sober world and then I'm going there, the medicine is using it as skin to express itself. Like, what came first? Like, me seeing it outside, or it came from inside and it comes out?
It's like the chicken and the egg, you know. It's just, it's one and the same. You know, it's I think that we are an extension of Creator, and Creator lives outside of us and also within us at the same time. You know, and I really truly believe that our life experience is just a quick separation from that universal one.
Right.
You know, and so we can all be connected if we do the work to tune in.
Well, what Herbert answered me to that question was that we're all going to the same center source of everything around the world, but also timeless. Because once you go there, time disappears, and we're going to the same place and time as all these cultures thousands of years ago were touching. And we're just coming out and trying to reinterpret it or doing it like anew. And in what you're doing with your work, with your tattoo work, is you're grabbing these ancient symbols and reinventing it in a more modern way, in a more modern...
Yeah, a big part of what I do is, aside from, like me being biracial and mixed, I feel that, and also being born in the United States, and trying to... It was kind of a gift and a curse. I can I obviously have the privileges to walk both paths, and so what do I do with that privilege? The only thing I can think of is to connect the two together and to use it as medicine for people.
Unity.
To connect, to bring unity and to also connect people to their ancestry, because a lot of times in the United States, we have more privilege when we decide to walk in a more Eurocentric path. And so there's these things where, like, and then aside from that, like, being that my mother came here to the United States and looking for a better life with more opportunity, she was always, with all respect, sometimes trying to push me more in that direction. And so I felt more protective of and defensive of my native heritage. And so I was very proud of that, and I felt very rooted in that, and I felt that it was like a big source of my power, whereas like she felt that the other way, like it was more powerful to kind of kind of go more with the United States, America.
Right, it's like you got superado.
Yeah, like why would you want to go in this route,
Right.
And that's just how it is. You obviously there's more opportunity, but I feel very blessed that I can still kind of tap into that and still carry that with pride, and also connect other people that have similar experiences. There's people that they don't know necessarily where they come from, but they feel something inside them that wants to connect back to that root. And it's beautiful that we can connect with each other and bring that forth with art, and especially with art that's permanent, that you wear like armor, that's not only gives you power, but can give other people power too, and can give other people knowledge, because they see these beautiful pieces and they question it. They're like, what is this? What does that mean? And how can I learn more about it? And then through that exploration, we come back to and remember who we are in a beautiful way, and we don't have to be afraid of anybody taking that away from us.
Beautiful. So you're doing mostly Mexican iconography, or
no? I do
Just
anything that's
tribal
mostly native to Central, South Mexico, or the Caribbean. I haven't really touched too much of the native plains stuff because I haven't studied it too much. I also don't feel like it's more my place to kind of tattoo. That way, I'm not opposed to it if somebody comes with the right direction. with it. They know what they're putting on them, because that's also a strong thing too. You know, you don't want to just like slap things on people and appropriate a certain culture without really understanding what it is. So people need to really understand what something is to put it on them, and that raises a lot of questions, you know, and a lot of gray areas almost. So it's like you kind of have to be careful a little bit, you know. And that's not to say like, you know, I don't know, like I do what I feel is authentic and right to me, you know. It could be the same with any type of art form. You know, it's like to say somebody that does martial arts. You know, martial arts come from China. Maybe somebody's a really good martial artist. Are they allowed to teach Chinese martial arts? Or maybe, you know, somebody's a really good drummer. They've studied African drumming their whole life, and you know, and when they drum, you know, it moves people, and they're, you know, they study under the best African teachers. You know, are they allowed to teach somebody African drumming, you know, when they're not of that descent? You know?
What I can relate to you on this topic is, for example, a lot of people these days paint on skateboards, but have they skateboarded?
Oh,
and I'm like, you know, like, oh, you're doing skateboard art, but have you broken your arm and paid your dues and really dived into a culture that you're kind of like grabbing the cool factor to make your art from?
Well, the way that I kind of work with it too is if you're creating something that's of a culture that's not specifically, and granted, we're talking about cultures that predated these borders that were put on by European colonizers. So it's like you got to think about that too. You know, what is Peru? What is Mexico? What's Ecuador? What's Colombia before these places existed? Right. You know, but aside from that, like, okay, there's still people that live in those communities. So what are you doing exactly to give back to those communities and to help people like that? What is this person that is painting on a skateboard doing for skateboarding, other than making money off it? Because that's where it kind of gets into the realms of commercial, of being a capitalist, and just and what do you a good friend of mine, Tyler James Dempsey, awesome tattooer, a great person. He once asked me, "Are you being or are you brand? Are you a being, a human being, or are you a brand? You know, are you just a machine that takes things and chews it up and spits it back out?" And we could do it on everything. We could make socks with the natio on them, and we can make shirts, and we can make hats, and we can make pins and patches and pens, but what does it all mean? And where's the money going? What's the message behind it? How's the knowledge being delivered? And what are you giving back to those communities? And so, you know, quick little plug, if I may. My sister, Heidi Kong, she's look her up on Instagram. It's at EYEOFKANG. She's working on a water project right now to bring water to the Huirarica people down in Nayarit, Mexico. So that's a big thing that we're donating money to. And I look forward to doing more projects like that where we can actually donate some money back, or a big portion of money back, to those people in those communities that are still living in the traditional ways but don't have things like running water. So we, you know, if we're not using our privileges for the better good, and we're just sitting here trying to get famous or trying to be better than the next person in what we're doing, then what the fuck are we really doing? You know, it's not a good thing. You're not bringing the right energy to it. You're not honoring the ancestors in the right way, or honoring the people that are still living in those ways. You know, and I think that's really important for anybody that does want to dive into those things and learn about those and represent that kind of craft. I think it's really important to understand, you know, and to do something positive with that. It's not just self-fulfilling.
Right. Let's get into psychedelics can
we talk about time? Can we talk about time real quick? Because it was something that you mentioned about time.
Okay.
So that's an interesting topic too, because I was thinking about that recently, and I was thinking about time, and it appeared to me, you said timelessness. I often wonder why, when you're having fun, you know, an hour can seem like a minute. And when you're sitting there meditating or you're bored, a minute can seem like an hour. And then I started realizing, what is time? You know, is it this count, you know? Right? This count is man-made. What is time isn't really the question. Really what we're measuring is movement in space. You know, it's like the distance between two objects. Even if I'm sitting still, there's still my heartbeat. I'm still growing. It's still aging. And aging is like 22. It's almost like time was invented to give man a place in the grand story of the universe. You know, it wasn't really something that's like, you know, it's just a man-made construct to define our existence here. and what we do with the space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And, you know, connecting it to plant medicines and psychedelics, when I go into the void that Aya takes me, it's like I'm removed from time. I'm not in time anymore. I'm not in space, or space just becomes infinite, and time becomes eternal, and you're in this never-ending now that connects to the never-ending nows of other times in the physical realm that we're experiencing right now, where there is a past, a present, and a future, but really we're only really experiencing the now. And I guess we're trying to touch the now moments that happened like 1,000 years ago, and those people who were trying to express source energy, God, you know, the infinite, and they were bringing that to their cultures as medicine. So, and this whole thing that you were saying, like, are we just milking these old cultures, grabbing the cool factor of these things and throwing it on products to make money, to be cool, and fuck them, or maybe not, or giving back to those communities?
Right.
I feel like it's amazing that you immerse yourself in the culture as somebody who's constantly expressing that culture and benefiting from it and giving back. But even just the service of passing on these symbols that really nobody owns, because it's from the infinite and the eternal, is we're serving medicine to the people, you know, because you put it on a person and maybe that person felt like, oh, that looks cool, but eventually it's gonna imprint some kind of consciousness on them, and they're gonna think of like, whoa, what does this mean, and who am I in reflection of that?
Yeah.
Can I grow from that imprint and art expression?
Yeah, that's a really good thing. A good point. I just watched this Bruce Lee documentary on the plane.
Okay, nice.
It's really interesting. You know, it was called Be Water.
Oh, I love that.
It was a beautiful documentary, and a big lesson that I remember also one of my teachers, Antonio Carrasco. Yeah, I did my first Wirarica style peyote ceremonies with him, and he the big thing that Bruce Lee did was unite people. You know, he was the first. First of all, he had European descent, part in his lineage. It gave him a little bit more privilege. He was born in the United States. That gave him a little bit more privilege. I mean, he was raised in China, and he was very proud of being Chinese. And when he came to the United States, there was a lot of racism towards his kind. You know, they were always portrayed in films as servants or kind of like just like
It's a lower class.
lower class or kind of ignorant, or like they weren't as good, and they didn't even allow, you know, Chinese people to play their own race in Hollywood. And so and still, with knowing that, he still shared his knowledge of his culture to everybody, you know, to black people, to Caucasian people, to Asians that weren't of Chinese descent.
To show how beautiful and
to
special.
show. And he said, you know, we're all children under God, you know? And that's something that my teacher Antonio told me. He said, you know, when a deer sees you, you know, a deer doesn't say that's a black man, or that's a white man, or that's a native man. It just says that's a human, that's a man, or that's a woman. You know, and that it was never like differentiated. With that being said, yeah, nobody chose to be who they are. You know, like nobody decided, woke up one day and said, I want to be this or I want to be that. You know, it was trickled down. But with that being said, these images do have a root, and they do come from specific people in specific places. So that needs to be honored. And our physical bodies are what our ancestors left us. You know, our physical bodies were literally a token of their struggle and their survival. So in that case, it must be honored in that way. You know, so it's important, but it doesn't mean that you're better than them. And I think that that's an important thing to remember, that you do honor where you come from, and you do honor where these symbols come from. You know, and especially if they don't belong to your heritage or to your people, even more so, you should study it even more. You know, and not carry it in a like kind of like a braggadocious, like, oh, I know what this is, let me put you on to something. But to be like, wow, like I feel honored that, you know, that I was able to receive this in this kind of way, and I'm going to carry it that kind of way. I'm going to carry it with that power and with that energy and with that meaning really symbolizes, because they're all those images, man. They're not. They're animals, you know. They're animals, or they're tools, or they're elemental forces, you know. And that's universal to all people.
Right.
The style of it. you know, the people that brought it, the people that fought, that sacrificed their life, that sat in front of the fire, you know, where there's other people coming after that fire, you know, that and a lot of times when we do ceremonies, we always do it in front of the fire. And I always think about that too, you know, we sit in front of the fire all night long. And I think about my ancestors. I think that's another thing that was universal to all people, is that all people sat in front of the fire at one point. You know, we all had to protect that fire, because there was other people that didn't have the fire, and they were out in the mountains freezing to death, and they would try to look for that light, and they would try to come after it, you know, and either they would make peace with the people and have a bigger community, or they would kill them and take that fire, you know. So that there's something that's speaking
That
of time.
relates to so many analogies of these days. It's
Yeah.
almost like the Babylon system, corporations trying to steal our soul power,
Ooh, yeah,
and
sure.
you know, with any means possible.
yeah,
And we're trying to protect it as spiritual warriors of the light, and we're actually trying to expand this fire and share it with everybody, because even the most corporate person, we give him our love and our fire. But it's that fear that they have. They want to take it away instead of sharing it.
Well, that's the thing too, because this is funny, right? Because have you ever seen that movie with Ron Perlman, The Quest for Fire? You know, oh, it's a good movie. You got to see that one. People can take your stuff. You know, I'm sure somebody's gonna take my artwork at some point. You know, it's on Instagram. You know, they could trace it, they could tattoo it, they could try to be Chimu. You know, but the thing that makes us unique, bro, is that we're creative. I always have something extra in my back pocket because I'm creative. You know, so stealing something, taking something, it's never gonna amount to the ideas that I have. You know, and I really fully believe that. You know, like okay, you want to be, you know, petty and take something and not be original and not be creative and not move in that frequency or that light. You know, it's like, I got something better. Go ahead, take that. And
We're an
going to
infinite
find
source
it.
of
Yeah,
creation and
yeah,
good vibes.
yeah,
And if anything,
yeah.
like when somebody like steals my style, borrows my style, or
Yeah.
allures to what I do, I'm just like, cool, more medicine for the people.
Yeah, that's
And-
the way you got to look
And if
at
it has the tint of my vibe, maybe my vibe has the tint of something else that came before that.
For
And
sure.
culture
For sure.
builds upon culture, and we
Yeah,
build
yeah,
upon each other.
Yeah.
And you know, we're open. We're
Yeah.
expansive. We're not, you know.
Yeah, you have to, a project that I was looking to put together, it was also like, I've met so many amazing people in Mexico, Peru, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, so many amazing artists that just don't have the platform that they deserve. So a big part of going back to the privilege that I have of even being able to travel so freely because I was born in the States, you know, I want to put other people on. You know, I'm working on a collaborative book. It's going to be a big book of Flash. I want to try to get a couple art shows going so that I could try to get people visas to come into the States so that they can have the connections and maybe marry some, you know, American girl or man and come out here and kind of, you know, and start to like kind of better their situations and stuff too. And so I hope that this book that I'm working on will allow that, and also raise some money to kind of give back where it needs to be given back to. But that platform, you know, even like, you know, what you're doing right now, you know, you've put in a lot of work, and it's beautiful that you can share your time and your space and your energy to put somebody like me and give me a platform to speak on these things, and also that'll help me to bring other people into it. We can't take anything when we're gone, bro. Like, you know what I mean? So what? You know what I mean? I have so much. I doubt that I will ever be able to do all the creative things that I want to do in my lifetime. You know, our time is limited, and going back to time, yeah, okay, it doesn't exist, but it exists in the sense that we aren't going to be here forever, right. You know, and so what I give back is way more important than what I take. So if somebody needs to use these things are for the future generation. The style that I want to pioneer, that I'm pioneering, that other people, that other colleagues of mine, peers of mine that are pioneering together, is going to give back to the future generations. We're young, indigenous, Latinx, Latino, however you want to call the beautiful mix of people that we are, can use, that they can benefit and honor their ancestors and kind of give that medicine to other people in the same way. That's what we're doing. So if they need it, that's what it's there for. You know, it's not ours to take. We just hope that they can do it in a good way, and they're not just doing it because it's cool or because, but they carry it as medicine, and that they give it to people and they explain to them that it's ceremonial, it's medicine. I mean, we're literally drawing blood. You're going through pain. You know, I strongly believe that only true transformation comes from pain, or from discomfort. You know, you could put on a mask and you could pretend all you want. You know what I mean? But until you feel that discomfort, until you feel that pain, that struggle, that's where true growth comes from, and that's how we're gonna elevate, and that's how we're gonna heal people and continue to give that medicine in a good way.
Beautiful. Well, I wanna reflect a couple things from what you're saying. I really like that you brought Bruce Lee, who was a mix and pure spirit and so talented. And
So
that
awesome.
that documentary, Be Like Water, I think like the quote, one of his quotes that I used for one of my mixtape was like, you know, if you have style, and he doesn't mean like, you know, if you're style, you're not style. He's gonna have style no matter. But it's almost like he was talking about styles of Kung Fu, I believe, is what he did, right?
Yeah.
If you choose one style, then you're kind of boxing yourself into that, you know, that set of rules or whatever. But if you say like, I got no style, I'm just whatever, I flow like water, then you become more infinite. And I think we're at this time where like all these cultures are mixing and races are mixing. Where I'm half Canadian, half Peruvian. You're half American, half Greek, half Peruvian. And we can all mix it all up because at the end of the day, we're all just source creation expressing in the world of spirit. And art is nothing but God expressing through all these different cultures that might have sourced from different places. But now as we're all mixing up as one globe united, we can just like, you know, make a beautiful stew of creation and expression and embrace each other in unity with respect,
Yeah.
but and honoring you know, the different cultures. So something I wanted to ask you was like, you gave me this tattoo and it's more leaning to the Mexica culture, Mexicans. So what would be a good book for me to read to learn more about this kind of tradition of expression?
Well, there's so many different books, but I actually just wrote a book. It's called The Sacred Tonal Powali, where it really breaks down each symbol.
The Secret of Napowawi?
The Sacred Tonal Powali.
The Sacred
Yeah,
of
that's the
Napowawi.
Tonali is the count. It's the count of the days. So I put out this book. I only made 100 of them, and
You made it.
yeah, I wrote the book.
Okay.
It's in English and in Spanish in one book.
I'd love to read it.
There's prints. So the print pulls out. You can rip out the print, and it also has clear cellophane in it that tattoo artists can use to make the stencils. And it speaks on every symbol. It's just a starting point because I want to go in depth and I want to touch also the Peruvian symbology and stuff too. But I felt that it was a good starting point because everybody always asks me like, oh, where do I go to find? And there's a lot. I mean, I'm not saying, hey, just go buy my book. You know, there's a lot of books out there that deal with these symbols and these different traditions and just not just from Mexico, but from you know, from all indigenous America. And
What would be one book that you would say would be the Bible that you recommend everybody to?
See, that's why I created the one that I did because I couldn't find one. There are I'd have to. I think that we could. I'm gonna have to give you a list, and maybe we can plug it into the comments section or something.
Sure.
Because there's so many that I just couldn't even begin to like name them all.
Uh-huh.
We'll give you like we'll give the listeners like a kind of like a reference resource.
Okay.
You know, there was a German dude that made a really good one about all the huacos in Peru.
Oh,
His
wow.
name is Jorgen Bolte, and he did a lot of like the moche, a lot of stuff with the moche iconographies and the chavin. And then there's
I would love a big fat book with all this six
there's
tribal
so
spiritual
much,
warrior
there's so much.
iconography
Yeah.
and maybe an interpretation of it, because really we don't know what a lot of these things mean because these people are gone in many cases.
Yeah, and that's going back to the reason why I work so much with the Mexica, because they have found a really good way of harnessing the culture and the traditions. You know, and also because I live in California. There's a lot of Mexican folks out in Cali that need some medicine that need the work done, and but aside from that, I had to basically do like volumes because there has to be a starting point. You know, the calendar to me was the starting point. It's the count of the days. It works with the calendar. It works with the cycles of nature, the seasons, and the different ceremonial periods that are in tune with the seasons, and like very much like the zodiac. it's they found a way of divination for actual personalities of people, so that people can kind of like find what their like sources or what resonates with
It's like
them.
a kind of astrology?
It's a little bit of an astrology aspect to it, as well as just like the movement of our planets. It's about alignment. Every 52 years is a new fire. 52 is 13 times 4, so there's 4 tonales that make up the years, and you count them in the sense of 13. So exactly. So you keep boop, 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 and it goes to 52. 52 and 52 is 104. So they have an even bigger ceremony every 104 years. So there's just a lot of well thought out. So when people were asking me, what do I read? There was a lot of books out there, but they were just like there was one that was like a dictionary of Mayan and Aztec symbols. There's other ones that are just about the history of the Mexica and the Tlapanecs and the Chichimecas and the Zapotecas, and they all have these really extensive histories. And even a lot of people don't know the Mexica themselves weren't from Mexico. They were from like North America. Like Aztlan was more like where Utah and Colorado is. They migrated down into Mexico. The Mexica that had like where current day Mexico City was, they are the ones that came to power, but originally they were like immigrants. They came down and they made they were like guerreros. They were like really warrior class people, and they made a lot of alliances and married into royal families and slowly made their way into power. Tenochtitlan, was like their city. They were given like the worst land, and they worked with what they had. They worked with they figured out a way to farm the swamps, these rugged, really rough terrains. And so it's also about like learning how to make sugar out of shit, and that's a big lesson in transformation, and it's also a big lesson in acceptance and unity too, because it's like, how do you come to a new place and start to establish yourself within that culture and within those confines of those people? How do you become powerful and limitless? So it's a beautiful lesson in that as well. But yeah, I mean, there's so much work to do, and I obviously want to dip more into like my Peruvian heritage and kind of bring forth there's so much to study and so much to learn. So how do I present it in a way for tattoo artists to use, and especially the younger generation of tattoo artists that are coming in that are just like me, that want to represent their culture and want to tattoo in these traditional Japanese and traditional American fashion, but don't want to necessarily do those designs. They want to do designs of their people. So hopefully through the education they can, that's also why I want to make this series of books, so that people can learn and carry it, and so that the future generations can use that, not so I can just like be like, oh hey, check it out, I made this thing, let me
No, you got intention.
Yeah.
So since you are so connected with the Mexica region, you've also been getting more into the peyote plant medicine, right?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about the ceremonial use of peyote.
Well, there's the Wirarica word for is hikuri, and hikuri means shimmering heart. I've always felt that this medicine is a heart opening medicine. There's different ways that in the way that I was taught. I'm sure there's a lot of ways that people have been taught throughout history. The way that I was taught, my first ceremony was Wirarica style. So there's a circle, and there's a woman's side and a man's side. There's 2 doors, and the fire is in the middle, and the fire represents the sun when the sun goes down. So essentially, a lot of the ceremony is praying for the sun to come back up. During that time, the fire is called Tatewari. It's the oldest primordial element, and we connect with the fire. So it's said that the fire knows everything about you. It knows, and you can't lie to it, just like you can't really lie to yourself. And people do all the time. And what we were talking about earlier, it's really messed up to lie to somebody, but it's even worse to lie to yourself. And even worse when you start to lie to yourself and you start to live your lies. And that'll never get you anywhere. You could go for years and maybe even a whole lifetime down the wrong path like that. So it's really important that through this work and connecting with the fire, that you see the truth. And all the psychedelic visions that come with it are kind of just little entry points. The real truth, the real medicine lies in the truth and in the community, how we help each other, how we do limpias. There's usually a maracame. He's like the shaman, he's the leader of the ceremony. He does the cantos, he brings forth. We usually have 4 main prayers. The first one is a permiso. You ask permission. permission to be on the land. You know, when I first arrived here, when I first arrived at Qatari Center, the first thing I did was put my hand on the ground. I thanked the Creator and I thanked the spirits of this land for allowing me to pass through, because I'm not from this part of Peru. You know, and so to just be here, to touch the ground, and to just say thank you for having me and ask permiso to be here, you know, was a big thing. And, you know, and then we should close the ceremonies up where we ask the butterflies to drink the sacred water. So that's a Wirarica style. You know, then you have a lot of like NAC, Native American Church, like these teepee ceremonies. That's a lot more focused, a lot more strict. You know, you're inside, it's a lot more intense. You know, people don't play around in these kind of ways. You know, the Wirarica feels a little more like, a little more liberated. We dance around the fire, sometimes we do a deer dance. But these other teepee ceremonies are very, very strict. People passing the boards around, drumming. It's mostly almost 100% like very native. You know, not too many European or Chicano people there. And so I've done a couple of teepee ceremonies, which is very different and very intense. And I also learned a lot. I mean, you're on your knees. You don't sit in chairs. You know, you're on your knees the whole time, sometimes up to 12 hours. You're not. We have a midnight water. We have a morning water. Wow. Midnight water is because eagles get up in the middle of the night to drink water. Okay. So that's what the midnight water represents. That's what I was taught. Right? So I'm sure there's a lot more. You know, so if I'm speaking of it in the wrong way, I apologize to any listeners. They're like, nah, that ain't it. But I'm still learning. I'm still learning a lot. It's transformed my life path in a really good way. I've learned a lot of. It's helped me a lot in how I communicate and how I speak, and understanding the power of our words. It's like there's a symbol in the Tanapo Wali Tekpat. It's a flint knife, you know, and it's one of my favorite symbols, because the flint knife, it represents your word, you know, and as you can see it in the tongue, in the center of the calendar that a lot of people call like the sunstone. It has a lot of names, but in the center of it, people say it's Tonatiu, the sun. Other people say it's Tlatnecutli, the earth. Whichever way you want to take it, the thing that's coming out of the mouth is the tekpat. The tekpat is a flint knife. So with a flint knife, you can create a spark to spark fire and create this illumination, this essence, this influential light. But it's also a weapon. It cuts you, it can stab you.
The tongue can be a weapon or a medicine.
Or a medicine. You know, it could heal people. You could see somebody having a really messed up day, and you can give them a couple little words of compassion and understanding, and it's completely turn that energy
okay, I'm
around.
gonna have to get that tattooed on.
Yeah, dude,
have you
it's a
tattooed
good
that
one.
before?
It's a good one. Yeah, it's one of my favorites to tattoo because of that, and then because it's such a reminder for people to be careful with their words, because sometimes when we make those cuts, man, we can't take them back. You know, those cuts leave scars, and those scars, you know, you could leave people with certain traumas that they can never bounce back from. You know, and that's important, and vice versa. You can give somebody some powerful medicine that they spread to other people too. So just with our words and with the way that we move and our energy, and even our silence at times, you know, silence is super powerful too. You know, sometimes silence speaks volumes too. You know, so. I like that, you know, and I've been learning to be very intentional with my words and the way that I speak and the way that I carry my energy through these ceremonies. So all my teachers, all the people that have brought me in and have taken trust in me, being like not of those specific cultures, but have welcomed me and allowed me to carry that medicine. And this teaching taught me songs that I can sing in the morning to the Creator, or that I can sing to other of my friends or people that are going through a hard time, or even share with other people. You know, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful way of life, and I you know, I'm so thankful that it came into my path, and it's part of, you know, the big picture of my artwork.
Beautiful. Well, I'm excited to hear you sing a little bit.
I'm excited to sing. I'm so excited to sing.
Tomorrow during the Temazcal, which is a North American ceremony.
Yeah.
Then
I'm so excited.
So now you're about to do an ayahuasca's retreat. So 3 different ceremonies. How are you feeling about it? Like,
I'm super excited. At this point in my life, I feel very good about my path. I feel I'm carrying what I've been given in a really good way, what I've been taught in a good way. I'm a little nervous because peyote is like a very rooted medicine, so it kind of brings me down to earth, and which I think I need because I'm kind of all over the place sometimes. and Aya shoots me up, and it's interesting because peyote is like a root, it's like they sometimes say that you need to eat the root to get to the root of the problem, not even just the bud of not even the button of the actual root.
Okay.
And Aya is a vine that grows upwards, so it's like kind of like the masculine and feminine. So sometimes like abuelito siempre te como abraza, te cuida, sit on my lap, and then Mama Aya is like, bang, she gives you that slap, that woo,
She also gives you hugs.
She's been in the past. Maybe it's because of where I was at. And I've only drank Aya like 3 times in my life, and the first time being really young, and the last time I was already doing peyote ceremony, so I knew how to sit up a little better, but still having these super intense outer body experiences and throwing up, shitting and throwing up again and going out full send like this. It's like it can get kind of curling up and crying, and it puts you through the ringer. But it always, when the sun comes up, always in the morning, you feel so good and so cleansed and so pure that I'm ready for it. And I just hope being here, where she comes from, where that spirit is from. I just hope that I just really have no expectations, and I hope that she welcomes me with open arms or teaches me what I need to be taught, and I have full faith in that, and I'm excited, and I'm so happy that I get to sit with you, and your birthday's coming up, so I feel good, I feel really excited, and I'm happy, and I'm full of life, and I'm just really ready to see what happens,
I'm sure it'll be very healing, and you had told me that this last year was a difficult year for you, as for so many people.
So many of us have been going new changes, new beginnings.
Well, it's that flint knife, almost cutting out the bullshit. Bringing in the blessings. I want to ask you, was it difficult being a tattoo artist during COVID time? Seeing that tattoo artists, you got to be so close and open up skins and fluids and.
Yes and no. I actually was praying to have some time at my home because I travel so much. So it was actually kind of, no offense to everybody, may Creator bless all the souls that did not survive this change and this cleanse. I know a lot of people that lost dear loved ones and friends and family, and that really hurts a lot. For me, first and foremost, I want to acknowledge that and let those people know that have lost people that my heart is with you and their loss, and I hope that those people are still living with you in spirit and becoming bigger angels and guides for the people that have lost people. So my heart does go out to you. As for me, being that I didn't need it to slow down and I needed to regroup and spend some time and at home. And I had really good company.
That's in San Diego, right?
Yeah, in San Diego, and so it was nice. I got to do a lot of painting. I actually finished. That was part of working on the book project. That I got to finally put a cap on that, which I never get a chance to really work on the computer when I'm constantly on the road tattooing and being in such demand to tattoo. Yeah, it was kind of a blessing in disguise in a way. I think the earth too. The planet got the chance to breathe. I was seeing pictures of all these natural habitats that started flourishing with new life. So I think that Pachamama was crying and she needed the chance to kind of just to breathe a little, to have a little break, from all the pollution that we put out, all the cars, the planes, and the hustle and bustle. And people also needed to remember what's important, to take it back to the root, to take it back to their families, and to really call loved ones and make sure that they're okay. And I think that's something that we should constantly do. And maybe even in a ceremonial way, the earth needs to start learning how to take those pauses and how to regroup and there's a time when we come out, winter time has always been a very internal, you do the internal work, introspective, you group in, hibernate, start planning, and then once the spring comes, deer dance, we start planting those seeds, we start putting in the prayers of what we want, and then summertime comes, those beautiful flowers come to bloom.
Are you optimistic about the future? Are you optimistic there will be a new spring, a new summer for humanity?
Always. You have to be. Things get hard, and we have to be here for each other and show up for each other when things are hard. But we also have to remember that life is beautiful, and every day that we have is a gift, you know, and Creator can take it away like that, you know. So it's always good to count your blessings and always stay, you know. And if you feel like things are getting bad, that's when you got to start going harder. That's when we got to start pushing harder and start bringing more light, because there is a lot of darkness out there. We have to see, as we're speaking, the sun comes out. My brother, thank you so much for.
Yeah, thank you so much for this awesome talk. You had said so many great things. I didn't even have to do much work. I just let you roll.
I talk a lot, man. You know, I talk a lot.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Chimu, for being here. I'm excited for our week together.
Me too.
And thank you so much, you guys, the viewers, for tuning in to another week of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends. Please press like, please comment and tell us what you thought. Please share this. Let more
even
people...
the negativity. You can give me the hate too. I'll embrace it. Whatever. You want to be hate?
We learn from each other in reflection, and I just want more people to learn all these beautiful artists that I'm sharing with you, and to keep this project rolling. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next week. Blessings. On our next episode, we will have Judea's Star.
And I just kind of said to him real matter-of-factly, like, look, dude, you're dead. You know, this isn't really helping. I know you want to see your friends, but, you know, I don't know exactly what's on the other side, but my understanding of it is that time doesn't exist. So if you were to just go back to God, blink of an eye, you'll be with your friends and everybody you loved again. And I saw him kind of take that in, and he understood it. And then I saw him kind of shrink down into this orb, and then bloop, 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 and went off into the sky. And I told them the story, and then the guy says, do you know where you're at? And I was like, no. And he said, this beach is called Polihale, which means House of the Dead.
So make sure to subscribe, like, and everything else. Big thanks, and see you next week. Peace.